Today's show brought to you by our friends from Sam Houston Race Park. What a great meet it's been. Just a day or two left, depending on when you watch this video or hear this audio. But really just want to say congrats to Sam Houston for a great meet. And we look forward to partnering them again in the future. Those industry low horizontal bets. This is definitely a track that should be on your radar for the couple of days left and going forward. We'll be working with them soon. And we'll be talking to their race caller in a little bit. Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show for Monday, April 4th. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatow, back with you in the Brooklyn bunker. Once again, we kick off today's show with an exciting announcement. Tammaro going to be here in a little bit to go over Derby preps and look ahead as far as that all that stuff goes. But we have an exciting announcement regarding the Derby, and to share it with me and with you, the listeners, the viewers over on YouTube, we bring in a very more familiar voice than face. We haven't had you on enough videos, guest, but we're rectifying that today from the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. She is the first lady of the In the Money Players podcast. She is Kim Weir. Kim, how are you?
Well, good morning, Pete. It is great to be with you in all forms of media, video, audio, and all of the above, especially because we have such an exciting thing to share with the In the Money family today.
Now, we talked about this off air, obviously, but I'm going to say it like I'm presenting it to you, this thing I was able to get myself involved in. Our friends at Churchill Downs have donated 4 seats in a box in the coveted, world-famous 300 section under the Twin Spires at Churchill Downs on the first Saturday in May. And we are going to be able to auction them off via an eBay auction to our listeners, to our viewers, with all the proceeds going to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. Kim, I know this is the kind of thing you just love.
Oh, I do. I just love this so much because it's one of our favorite recipes, Pete, is when people get to have fun and do good all at the same time. This is so much that. And of all the horse racing fun things, it is the epic, iconic first Saturday in May. And every little bit of that fun can benefit our horses. And I'm so excited for you to share this with all of your listeners. It's such a fun collaboration.
We've done a great job, if I do say so. I'll pat myself on the back. In past years, raising money for the TRF. I'll be honest, we're off to a little bit of a slow start this year. We need to get things rocking and rolling. This is going to be the way we get things rocking and rolling. I've sat in these seats, not these exact seats, but I've sat in this section many times. It's a really sort of iconic view of the festivities. Treat yourself to something special. If you're thinking about going, this is a great option. If you're not thinking about going, maybe this is the kind of thing that will get you thinking about going. If you are a listener, we'll arrange a special little In the Money session while there. We'll come up, we'll say hi to you. Kim, you won't be there by then, I don't think, but I'll be around. Love to come up and go over the races on a one-to-one level with whomever buys the seats. If the person has heard enough of me by that point in Derby week, which is completely legitimate, I'll leave you in peace and you'll just get a great view of the races. But in either case, I think this is going to be a package well worth bidding on, obviously for a great cause. As Kim and I have spoken about many times, the work that the TRF does in helping humans and helping horses, really worth your support as a horse player, as a racing fan. So where do you go? We have a special page set up on the TRF website. Probably the easiest way to go is to go through our page that we talk about all the time, trfinc.org/players. From there, though, you can get to this special page on the TRF site that has a link directly to the eBay auction. I like this catchphrase a lot, Kim. You bid, they win. A very special online auction for the TRF herd. What else do people need to know about this auction?
Well, a couple things to know. We are just so grateful to Churchill Downs for making these seats available. And we're so grateful to you, Pete, and the whole ITM network for sharing the word. This is cool because it is $4 seats, as you've pointed out, which you would normally be paying a pretty penny for. And in this case, you are, while still paying a penny, all the pennies are going to our herd, every single one of them. To that note, we have added in the spirit of fluffing up the offer with some fluffy, furry creatures with 4 hooves. And that would be our herd at the TRF sanctuary farm at Chestnut Hall, which is a mere 30 minutes from the parking lot of Churchill Downs to our farm in Prospect, Kentucky. So our lucky winners not only could get the primo seats for the primo race, but they can also, at their convenience, come out and have a private tour, meet the horses, feel the love, and come out to Chestnut Hall. And we can arrange that incredibly easily before or after. We would not be trying to do that on Derby Day. But that is just an extra Benny to sort of pull it all together. It is you bid and they win, and then you get to go meet them. And while they can't say thank you, while they nuzzle you and pose for pictures, I think you'll feel the appreciation. So that is the big extra besides the seats. It is also important to note for those who may, as you said, either are thinking about going anyway, or maybe never thought about going. This could be that moment. I've been thinking about lots of people in my life who've said, I've always wanted to go to the Derby. I've always wanted to go to Derby. Well, if you're going to go to the Derby, get these seats and know that you gave it as a gift to the horses. Like, this is it's a win-win. But an important little detail, which is on this page and it's everywhere, is that these seats are all inclusive. That's the new model for Churchill this year. So it is all food, all drink included. So perhaps an even greater another part of the piece is to know that this includes parking. You have to, and on availability, you can't go late and think you're going to get parking, but you get parking and you get all your food and drink and the best seats in the house, all for the horse.
Cool. It's a great opportunity. A lot to go over and talk about, but I think you hit the high points. One thing though, to clarify, because it all goes to charity, is it entirely tax deductible as well?
Yes. So this is the TRF's eBay account. So this is going straight into the TRF account. So much as folks who may have participated in our online auction, they will indeed get the benefit of a charitable deduction receipt from us, because it is a donation.
You mentioned the visit to Chestnut Hall. I've done that. It's fantastic. Absolutely worth doing. The other point I want you to chat about while you're on the show this week, of course, opening weekend of Keeneland. We're going to have some special content devoted to that as we get a little bit closer. But those going to Keeneland have an opportunity to get involved in some Blackburn correctional visits as well. I just have to make this known again. I've talked about this in various formats, but this was an amazing experience, as in the tank as I already was for the TRF, because of admiring the work they do and specifically all the stuff that Kim does over there. Going and actually getting to talk to the men in the program and hear about how this close contact with horses and learning these skills of dealing with horses had changed and improved their lives. It was like life-changing stuff for me. I really, really loved it. And it's not just for a select few at this point, is it, Kim? I mean, it's not like anybody can just roll up there, but we do have some opportunity. We have some opportunities for donors to come by and see what's going on, right?
Yes, no, that's the thing. Certainly, I would start with, don't just drop by. Please don't just drop by. It is prison. But however, if you're a friend of Pete's or you're a friend of mine, a friend of the show, and you're going to be in Lexington this time of year, we are able, thanks to the extremely wonderful partnership we have with the Blackburn Correctional Complex, that we can bring VIP guests to meet the horses and to hear the men tell you themselves how this is changing their lives. So I would say it's one of those simple things. I'm just going to go ahead and put my email. The best way to let me know that you're going to be in Lexington in April is to email me, kim@trfinc.org. Just tell me that you're a listener of the show and that you would be interested. We will run a background check, so just know that in advance. It's a free service with your RSVP, but you just want to know that. And I'll make it really easy. It's very, very close. I mean, Pete, I don't know if you went to the races that day. I can't remember what day you went, but it's really close to everything in Lexington.
Oh, yeah.
And Keeneland.
It was the easiest. It was super easy to get out there. It was great. And you're wise to point out that background checks thing to our audience, Kim, because there's a few outstanding warrants. I'm not making anything.
I make no comment. It's an extra service that we offer, is a background check. I look at it that way. So anyway, I would be so delighted to bring some of our friends from In the Money Network on to meet the horses. And we're so grateful that we're able to do this. This is a very special thing with the world such as it is and prison such as it is. The fact that Abby McIntyre, our warden, says if they are important guests to you, Kim, you can bring them. So I would love to do that. And Pete, I'm so glad that you were able to find the way to get there last fall. Now, our next project will be getting you to Wallkill here in New York.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. The closer one is
Harder.
the one that's been harder. So Kim, what you're really trying to tell us is you've got some juice on the inside.
Well, I know some people. I know you, and that is really all that matters. I am so grateful to you, Pete. Thanks for just being such a partner. And we are so excited to have something so cool for you to offer and to promote to your audience. I really do hope we get some good bids on these beautiful seats, and that it'll be a magnificent day of racing to benefit the horses.
That says it all. In all seriousness, I highly recommend getting a visit done, and it's a special opportunity to see this work up close. It has the potential to really change your outlook on a lot of things. And as I like to say, in a correction system that famously doesn't always work that great, this is something that works great. And the TRF have been just unbelievable in the way they've been able to change lives, as I always say, of not just horses, but humans. So we want to support that work. What better way to do it than getting involved in this auction on eBay? Easiest way to find it, trfinc.org/players. You can also make a donation while you're there. Hey, if you don't win the auction and you want to support, you can do that as well. And we even still have some good premium gifts to give away to people who do that. You hear about that all the time on here. Kim, thank you so much for your time today. We'll let you get about your day, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you, Pete. See ya.
Today's show also brought to you by one of our favorite bets in racing, the Golden Hour Pick 4. Don't forget about that Golden Hour Double too. You know, I like to use those two in conjunction. We cover them here on the Late Week Show every week. You can also get great info about the Golden Hour Pick 4 over at santaanita.com under the handicapping section, including Frank Scatoni's matrix for the Golden Hour Pick 4. You can see Frank right there on your screen if you're watching on YouTube. And Equin Edge have special info for these bets as well. Very often Trip Note Pros as well. You can go fully armed to tackle one of the best bets in racing. That elevated high minimum helps horse players, helps the pools be a little bit less efficient and controlled by the computers, and the industry low takeout does not hurt either. To learn more, go to santaanita.com. Next up in the show, very happy to have with us from InTheMoneyPodcast.com, from the Sam Houston announcers booth, from various projects in and around horse racing. He is Nick Tammaro. Nick, how are things?
I'm doing great, my friend. How are you?
Things are excellent. Let's talk Sam Houston just for a second. You got what, 2 more nights?
3 more. Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
3 more. I stole a night from you. But, give me your reflections on the meet. You're happy with how it all turned out? You're looking forward to finishing up and getting back?
Well, I should say, in fairness, we actually have 28 days left because the quarter horse people would not be happy about me referencing only the thoroughbred portion of the meet.
That's fair. I'm allowed to do that because those people don't give me
You are, right. Yes, I'm working on that. It's 3 days left in the thoroughbred meet, which has been great. I mean, it's been a ton of fun. It's been the reception has been incredibly good. I've been very pleased by it. Obviously, personally, it's been a relatively tough quarter. But I think the job itself was, anybody who ever shared the adage that whatever you're going through, if you just bury yourself in work, things get a lot easier. And so that's kind of how I've generally gone about things. So it's been a ton of fun. I mean, I feared to an extent that I wouldn't be any good at it. And, when people were going to say, oh, God, that was just, it was a publicity stunt or something like that. And so I felt good about how the meet has gone. And the other night I walked into the GM's office when the Saturday card was over, and he's a Dwight Berube who's getting into the twilight of his career. And he said, Nick, I want to let you know one of the 10 best decisions I ever made in my career was hiring you. And That's said, awesome. Wow. I was like, wow, are you serious? And he said, yeah, I'm serious as a heart attack. So I thought, wow, that's great. Great to hear. So it's been, it's been a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to the quarter horses just to be on the mic.
That's very, very cool. Now, I like this idea that it was a publicity stunt. What, like, we're gonna bring in the mean guy from Twitter? Like, how's that work exactly?
And I've had to even change my Twitter persona, right? I've had to get a lot nicer, which is so hard. Where do you channel it? But I guess it was like it was probably designed to draw the ire of every announcer in the world, right? Because they were going to be like, oh, this guy he's not an announcer and he sounds like it. So yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It was publicity stunt is very bold on my part to characterize it as that. That's as if to say I have any publicity at all.
Let's talk about these Derby preps from the weekend. One interesting note to hit. I thought this was kind of cool. We'll talk about it more on the late week show. But did you see they're changing up how they're doing the last Derby future pool, and it's actually going to close at 4:30 on Saturday, which I think from a wagering point of view is going to make me take more of a look at that pool than I would have, because there's a chance maybe we like something wise guy in one of those races, and you can get a little bit of meat on the bone. I thought that was actually kind of a cool thing that they're doing.
I think it is too. And since it's the, what I think, fourth or fifth pool, you've got a lot of, this is a situation, of course, where we're generally going to have a pretty decent idea who's in the field. And I think what it does is it obviously increases the opportunity for value. So if you're right about the final prep, and, I think the horses that, there are obviously a lot. I think the field for the Wood looks like it's going to be decent size, 8 or 9. Bluegrass, same kind of thing. Santa Anita Derby. It looks a little bit to me like the biggest talents might be out there in a way, speed wise. So you're going to get a real bonus if you're right twice.
Yep.
Right. And so that's going to be and essentially to hit a future wager, you have to be right twice anyway. So
That's
it's
right.
going to be, I think it's you've got to be right 3 times, I guess. You've got to like them, they've got to get to the gate, and they've got to win. So you've not really taking one out of the equation. But I think it's interesting. Why not try something a little different? I mean, otherwise, at risk of sounding disparaging of it, the Derby future wager otherwise gets a little stale. It's the same thing over and over. It's the same, 23 betting interest with the field. And so why not try something a little different to maybe try and inject some value? And this might do it.
And that's right, because you without knowing what the prices are going to be. I mean, pari-mutuel future is always like a tricky concept to me, but this is something that makes it make a lot more sense in my brain. But we're actually here not to look forward, but to look back at the prep races from last weekend. And we'll start off talking about the Florida Derby. We'll take a page from the Matt Bernier book and and also from we'll make producer AJ, who's with us for this segment of the show, have to work a little harder, pushing the right buttons. We'll roll the replay of it as you're watching this on YouTube, and we encourage folks to check out the YouTube channel. We've done doing a lot of fun stuff over there and presenting the content a little bit differently. We got some good feedback from last weekend, so that'll be happening in the background as we yap about the Florida Derby. What did you think of this race in general, Nick?
I had relatively high expectations, as I hold off a sneeze, for this race. I'll say, Pete, that as a number one takeaway, I was underwhelmed. I thought it was a race where we were really going to see somebody take a big step forward, and you felt like if that was going to happen, it was going to be one of the prime 4, right? It was going to be Classic Causeway, Simplification, White Abarrio, or Charge It. And so with White Abarrio winning, you're inclined to say, why didn't he take a big step forward? I thought he simply was at the right place at the right time. I thought he did it in kind of workmanlike fashion, but in many ways, this played out as a race that it just didn't have any pizzazz. It didn't have anything that you can take away and say, wow, I mean, that was the kind of move I want to see, or that horse overcame this type of trip or something like that. I mean, we're watching the replay right now, and the most striking thing to me halfway through this race is obviously something went wrong with Classic Causeway. So, I mean, those of us who even had negative opinions on Classic Causeway, we didn't think he was going to stop at the half-mile pole.
No, that was definitely out of I mean, my main opinion was probably to bet him out of the try in the race.
Right.
But I mean, you don't even feel right when they go that wrong. Like hopefully the horse is all right. But yeah, I mean, that was something I was pretty I'm losing my mouth words here, Nick, and I don't know what's going on. But
you were shocked by it. I mean, that was shocking. I don't think that's too harsh of a word to use. That looked a lot like a situation, and I'm no vet, I'm no trainer, but that looked a lot like a situation where he could have bled. So, I mean, he stopped pretty abruptly, and I think Irad knows, what's under the hood, and so he didn't abruptly pull him up, but he wanted to, to get him out of there and keep him as safe as possible. I think it also probably closes the book on him as a grade 1 router. And that's probably the best thing that could happen for him, is that they'll shorten him up and he can probably be effective sprinting moving forward. So, I mean, as far as the principles, White Abarrio ran a relatively similar race to what he ran in the Holy Bull, speed figure wise, performance-wise. It was a soft trip. He was tracking the pace. Pace was stronger in this race than it was in the Holy Bull, so I'll give him a little bit of credit for that. Simplification seemed like he did a little bit more heavy lifting, being on top of the pace. And then I thought when they turned for home, Jose was maybe going to shake him up a little bit, and he'd be able to fend them off for maybe a 16th of a mile more. He capitulated pretty regularly and readily, I should say. And then, of course, I mean, the horse to talk about trip-wise, based on, it seems like a lot of the takeaways, was Charge It. So, I mean, obviously, Charge It was taking an enormous jump in class. He was going from a maiden race into a grade 1. People talk all the time about, oh, we see Todd Pletcher do this successfully. We actually don't. He's 1 for 27 in this scenario. What he has done is move horses into allowance races and then into grade 1 or graded type of races. So I'm not getting the whole Charge It had a tough trip, Charge It's green, oh, he'll work everything out in the Derby, which is the master class of tough trips. Right. So I'm not betting on that at all. He feels like a horse that, based on what we've heard about his morning activity, he's probably going to have a lot of hubbub at Churchill, and he is probably going to be in the teens odds-wise, depending on how these last few preps shake out. He's not a horse I'd bet.
That's interesting. I mean, I'm in this guy's fan club. We had Pletcher on the show before the first race even and spoke about him in such glowing terms, and I really liked the maiden win. I think you can make a case that he had a tough enough trip, at least to say that, well, he quote unquote ran through the Pletcher stat and did well under the circumstances. Like, it's not his fault he was bet to 3-1 or whatever it was. He had to me, he had enough excuses to not finish second. The greenness, you can argue it either way in the Pletcher barn, honestly. I mean, I'm inclined to go with the narrative that the greenness is tied to the idea that you had a maiden winner going into a grade 1 and say this is stuff that he's supposed to at least improve past White Abarrio next time. I have some sympathy for that point of view. But you can also say Pletcher, the way he trains, it's almost like they're getting race experience in the morning. And if he's that green 5 weeks in front of the Derby, good luck, as is your opinion. So I could see it at the end. It'll all just come down to price on him. The only case I can make for White Abarrio going forward also has to do with a conversation I had on air with Saffie Joseph Jr. when he talked about how surprised he was by White Abarrio's previous race, thinking he was going to be short that day because he'd missed some time. And then he was ultra confident about him in the Florida Derby, and those words proved correct. But it is interesting to think, if you think of this as not the peak and maybe a step along, how much more there is in the tank. It's interesting he's a lot more interesting to me than I ever thought he was going to be when I was looking at the previous win at face value, just as a horse who could be sort of on a pattern, with sort of just incrementally improving. I think you can give, even though I don't think there was a huge figure improvement, I think you can make a pretty good case that he improved, just even though he was not on the pace early. He still was moving into what I thought was a fast part of the race. And if you want to give him a little bit extra credit for that, maybe he's not a total toss, but he's probably going to be shorter than I'm going to want to deal with come Derby Day. What price do you think White Abarrio is going to be?
I'm telling you, you're headed for CNN Plus with all these trainer interviews you're doing. Politicians are next. They're the only ones that can filibuster the same way. I kid, of course. I think White Abarrio will be 12-1, 15-1, got to be something like that. I mean, there's always going to be built-in support for the winner of a race like the Florida Derby, and his record, all in all, looks good. I think I guess one of the questions is, how is the public going to handle the fact that the only seemingly subpar race this horse has ever run was at Churchill? But at the same time, it came in what has clearly played out as a very productive Kentucky Jockey Club. And all in all, I mean, he really didn't run bad. He ran third. It was early in his career. He was taking a big jump in class, and I'm sure that Saffie had an eye on the following spring in bringing him up to Churchill. And I mean, I wouldn't say, it was a poor effort or anything like that. So I think he's going to have that level of support. He becomes part of an interesting conversation, Pete, about the pace, because if you're looking at Time Form US pace figures, which I did quite extensively looking at recapping some of these races, And so horses like White Abarrio, Simplification, Charge It, we're going to talk about the Arkansas Derby. They're going to run against horses that have consistently been running pace figures that are 20 plus points faster than them. So what happens when White Abarrio and Simplification and Cyberknife run against Forbidden Kingdom and Messier in early voting, who are super fast in a race where there's 20 horses packed in the gate and there's 150,000 screaming people and the opening quarter is 22-1? Then you're talking about a situation where things get a lot tougher and you're having to be used so much more to stay close, and that takes its toll in the final quarter of a mile. I'll say what Charge It looks like to me is a horse that if he gets a run in the Derby and he finishes, in a credible position, then I could see Todd backing off him a little bit, and I could see him being a very dangerous Saratoga horse, because obviously he's got the will take charge on the dam side, a late developing type and there's some precocity in there too. I mean, there are horses like Take Charge Brandy who were good at two, but this might be a horse that just gets a little bit better incrementally. And I mean, look, he's earning mid-90s buyer speed figures early in his 3-year-old season. If he's a horse that's capable of running 10 points faster in 4 months, he could be very, very tough.
I like that prediction. Simplification, I think you pretty much covered. You feel like trip-wise, a race like the Derby maybe going to be a little tricky for him. And I'm not seeing, and I'm not hearing from you much reason to think he might be able to reverse the form with the two that beat him on Saturday. Are we giving him short shrift, or is that about right?
I mean, maybe a little bit of short shrift, but this is a horse that's only run a Gulfstream. He's going to have to take his game on the road. And look, Antonio Sano has done this with quality horses in the past, but he doesn't quite look like Guinevere to me, who was a horse that was always never going to need to take his racetrack with him because he was just a one-run sort of pokey closer. I can't say bad things about him. His runner-up finish in the 18 Breeders' Cup Classic helped me in the BCBC. So, no negatives on Guinevere, but yeah, I think I could see him being a horse that chases the pace and just ultimately doesn't quite have the stamina to stay.
Let's move on to Arkansas, unless you had any other thoughts on that Florida Derby or anything there. Let's do it. Let's talk about the action from Hot Springs, where we saw Cyberknife get the job done. That was a pleasing gambling result for me. I don't know though. How much does this horse have left in the tank in terms of, is there a reason for him to make another move forward in a race like the Kentucky Derby?
I know that Brad Cox has liked him, and he referenced in the interview after the race that he kind of had to twist Florent Giroux's arm to ride Cyberknife instead of staying with We the People, which of course played out like a good decision. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing that the way the last 5 years have gone, that when Brad tells Florent and Doug Bradar what he wants, I think they listen. He's got a track record of success. He's been all right, that guy. So I think he got a great ride. First of all, I thought that the winning move in the race came on the backstretch, and it happened around the 5/8 pole when Florent sensed that Cyberknife was potentially going to get into a spot that was going to put him right alongside the leader. So we're watching the replay right now, and of course, the thing that you want to identify out of the gate is that Secret Oath is not out particularly well now. This idea that she was like mauled at the start and was given no chances is incorrect. She broke with the field. They came over a little bit on her. She got into a tight spot. It probably kept Luis Contreras from keeping her a little bit closer, but let's not kid ourselves. That was a 22 flat opening quarter. So how much closer did he want to be in order to have any chance to win? You're seeing the first turn here where Kavad is setting the pace with Chasing Time and Doppelganger in pursuit, and Cyberknife has this ideal position in fourth. I mean, what better spot can you be in the middle of a fast-paced race than spying the leaders 3 lengths or so off? And the move that I was referencing happens right here, where Florent sees an opening between Kavad and Chasing Time, and he puts Cyberknife right into it. Now, one thing I'll say, regardless of how this race plays out and the speed figure that it gets, these are the kind of moves that a horse needs to make to get into contention in the Kentucky Derby. They need to be handy. He has to use them just a little bit, but otherwise you can see that Florent is riding high in the saddle. He's not asking this horse to run yet. He's just making sure that he's putting himself into position potentially to win. And I mean, I bet Cyberknife in this race. I guess it's a red board, but
I already did it, so you might as well
yeah,
too.
right. I handicap 8 million races, so I didn't know if I had the opportunity to post it publicly. But I mean, I was counting the money the whole way. I thought this horse never looked like a loser. And so he takes command off the turn. Secret Oath makes this enormous move around the turn to go from last to third. And then she kind of runs out of gas in the final furlong, which is totally understandable. I think everything that had gone on. And Barber Road finishes well enough. I'm completely dominating talking about the replay, but I thought it was a good effort from the winner. You know, it was not, the clock probably belies the quality of the performance, which I know is a little bit of I guess, a fallacy on my part, but I thought he ran well. You know, I think he's a good horse. Unfortunately, at this point, in comparison to the best of his generation, he looks a little slow. He looks like he's going to have to run a lot better, but I wouldn't go out of my way to exclude somebody from the barn of Brad Cox that might be a progressive type and could be getting good at the right time.
This is going to hurt me to say, but yeah, after the 28-1 winner last year, you know, hey, maybe you give him a little bit of extra, maybe you give him a little bit of extra credit. You make a great point. I wanted to come away from this saying cool horse too slow, but that attribute of being able to hit the hole like he did, and you saw it great on right when you called it out on the replay. That's worth something. I think that's worth something in ability terms when you're handicapping a race like the Kentucky Derby. And so Secret Oath, it's funny. I think, and the pace, looking at the pace line, it doesn't bear this out. I wanted my opinion to be that it was a tough trip, but not for the reasons people are talking about, that she actually maybe moved too early. But looking at the pace line, it doesn't exactly suggest that. On Timeform US 126, 133, 121, 113, 107. But I guess you can make the case that was what maybe took a little bit of the sting out. I mean, she's really good. It doesn't seem like there's going to be, I mean, it sounds definitely like she's pointed toward the Oaks. I mean, how good do you think she is? I mean, would you like her at all in the Derby if they reverse course and go that way? And how do you think she stacks up against her own sex?
I think she'll be one of the choices in the Oaks, and I think the prudent approach is to run in the Oaks, which is still a very meaningful race. And I think it was, you know, look, it was cool of Wayne to do it, because if she wins, then you've got a real decision to make about where you want to run, and you're already in the Oaks starting gate. So it was a total win-win. And what you found out is that she's one of the better Arkansas-based Derby hopefuls. And not that that's necessarily saying much. It's a down year for the Arkansas crew, but I thought she lost nothing in defeat. I think that she'll now be, I mean, she'll probably be the morning line favorite in the Oaks. I don't know, you know, what we'll get from Adair Manor or Kathleen. Oh, obviously Kathleen O will be very well fancied, very popular connections. I'm sure we'll talk about the Oaks at a separate time, but yeah, I mean, she'll be one of the 2 or 3 choices in there. No, I wouldn't run in the Derby. I think there's still too much out there for Secret Oath in the 3-year-old filly division. And I mean, I think to me, you're running in the Oaks, and then you're figuring out how many times Lucas runs her before the Alabama. I'm hopeful that number is relatively small, but I mean, if she was my horse, it would be very simple. It would be Oaks. I probably would pass the Acorn and look at, or maybe run in the Acorn because it's Belmont Day, and then Coaching Club American Oaks, Alabama.
Yeah, it'd be a great campaign. It'd be so fun to see her up at Saratoga. Daddy liked the track, arrogant. So you'd think that you'd think she'll do pretty well up there. The idea that she was better than the winner, and you give any credence to that?
I don't, because of the pace. I think, and he won by a really comfortable margin. You know, I think that I think this, you know, so-and-so was best is getting beat to death a lot of times by people that aren't necessarily the most apt at deducing it. And so, not to disparage some of the trip handicapping out there, but obviously in the era of social media, the error of social media, I should say, there's a lot of it going on. But look, she's going to get a huge Thundergraph number. You know, it's going to look like she ran extremely well, but she did run well. You know, in the context of the race, I thought she ran well, but she got like what, 87 Beyer Fig. So I mean, she technically took a step back off the Honeybee, and that has to do with the tougher competition. You know, it's going to be these were better horses than she's faced. As far as the final figure goes, there was some conversation about this on social media. And when Cyberknife ran on Risen Star Day, he ran a comparable mile and a 16th to the mine shaft. And so the races, there was obviously a split variant. Randy Moss makes the buyer figures for Fairgrounds. Randy is as skilled a figure maker as you're ever going to find, as learned on the topic as it comes. And it didn't matter whether he was in China or Mars when he made those figures. He's going to put in everything that's necessary to do it. And so I think so somebody said to me, you know, is there any conversation about this now that Cyberknife came back and ran well? And I said, well, he basically ran the same race. The difference was that Randy believing, in my opinion, and I did not speak to him about it, but Randy believing that the pace influenced the final time bumped up the figure on a projection by 5 points, which makes perfect sense in this scenario. So no, the figure was not wrong. But there is a belief that you can have that Cyberknife might be a faster horse than his figs show. The good thing is that you're going to get value in believing that if you're right, because he feels to me like, even with, and look, he seems like a good training horse too. There'll probably be some buzz about him in the morning in the lead up. He feels like a horse who's going to be 12 or 15 to 1, you know, maybe even more than that, depending on what we see this coming weekend. And the people who want to back him will get a just reward.
Let's talk Barber Road for a second. For me, the thing that I'm most interested in Barber Road is as a form yardstick, because I think he's a really reliable yardstick with as many starts as he's had at like pretty much a very similar level.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this is when I was coming at it with my idea that the race was just too slow to have Derby implications. I was thinking that the winner of the Arkansas Derby is supposed to beat Barber Road by more than that if he's to be a real player in the Kentucky Derby, because I sure don't think, based on the known form, that there's any reason for Barber Road to contend in a race like the Kentucky Derby. Am I being too dismissive of him?
No, I think that's fair. He seems like a placing chance, potentially. What you know is that, you know, a half mile from home, if they're just way out in front of him, Raylu's going to ride his ass off for any piece of it he can get. And I think that's what you have in your corner if you're backing him. So, you know, I think depending on how you might construct your trifectas or your superfectas, you might, you know, he's a horse that you want to probably put prominently in third or fourth, because he could be picking up the pieces. And I mean, at this stage of the game, this feels like a race that should have a pretty forced pace. You know, the horses that we know are in the gate through the last couple of weekends are, well, one of the second place finisher in the Dubai World Cup has speed. Summer is tomorrow. And we know Epicenter is going to be forward. We know Zozos is going to be forward. We know White Abarrio Simplification are going to be as forward as they possibly can be. I think we have a good feeling that Cyberknife will not be far off of it, but he probably can settle 5 to 6 lengths out. And I mean, we're still waiting to see. I mean, the key to this race is Forbidden Kingdom, right? I mean, if he's in there, then they're going to move. So fingers crossed that happens. I like a fast-paced Derby. I love chaos.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. And I want Travis Stone to have to call a total collapse Derby, right? He has had no collapse Derbies, and he hears this, he's going to be pissed at me and be like, "You are called a collapse Derby." But yeah, so I think that would be fun.
You make a couple of great points generally about vertical wagering strategy that I just want to underline. 2 things to pay attention to, not to be too slavish to figures, because when you get extreme pace scenarios, that's when slower horses finish ahead of faster horses, tortoise in the hare style. And that is a good point for a hold-up runner like Barber Road. And another angle, and you know, look, it's the Kentucky Derby. Every jockey's probably riding for everything that they can. But when you do your race design and you think about who's in the saddle and what the goals are for, you can get a little bit of an angle. Like if it's a speed, one of my favorite angles in a trifecta is take the second best speed horse and bet them not to be anywhere if there's multiple speeds in the race, because they're going to probably crack and get passed by slower closers who are going to be bigger prices. And thinking about a rider like Raylu and how he's likely to approach a race like the Derby, I just think it's an interesting thing to put a little bow on before we proceed. Now, I said going into the race, we had the question earlier. I think it was in the Way Too Early Derby questions show. Somebody asked, how do we handle the Baffert off runners? And I said, going into the Arkansas Derby, I'm going to handle them on their known form. And, you know, fortunately I didn't end up landing on either one of them. Coming out of the race, you know, I mean, it was enough of an underperformance for me that I'm tempted to downgrade a little. Now, maybe that's way too early. Maybe that's knee jerk. and maybe that's going to get me burned, and I haven't handicapped the races yet. So, I reserve the right to change my mind, but I thought the underperformance was notable enough that I'm going to take note of it going forward. Whereas my original inclination was to just ignore the fact that it was Baffert off and treat them exactly like they were still Baffert on. Where do you stand on this question?
Yeah, I didn't like Doppelganger, so he ran about as well as I expected. I mean, I think this topic is going to come down to one horse. Honestly, I think it's going to come down to Messier. It's really, there's going to be one horse that's in the conversation. I know Blackadder went to Rudy Brissett. He looks like a synthetic horse. I know he's getting a run in the bluegrass, and we'll see how he takes to the dirt. But I'm trying to think of the other Derby hopeful that got transferred that I didn't. Yeah, it's not the horse that won the Southwest. I think he's on the shelf. So there was one more. I know Doppelganger and two other horses went to Yakteen, and then Blackadder went to Brissett. So yeah, I'll handle them case by case. I guess I didn't expect that. Doppelganger looks like a one-run sprinter to me. He looks like a one-turn type of horse. He kind of ran in spots, so I think he'd be super interesting on the cutback, and we'll see if that's maybe what they end up deciding. But yeah, I don't want to take a hard line approach either way. I'm not going to say like, oh, I'm betting all of them, or oh, I'm tossing all of them. I'm going to let the situation dictate. And that just didn't look like a race to me that was going to set up for him at all. And he got kind of a weird trip. He started him kind of running late and getting back into fourth is a little bit. And again, I mean, you don't want to say an indictment of the balance of the field, right? They got beat by so much, but we do have to worry about the quality of that race. It does feel like a race because, I mean, look, bottom line is that the Arkansas races throughout the spring have not been good. I mean, they've been slow, they've been unimpressive. And so this one was just a little bit better, maybe kind of the best of the bad in a way. So I will have that in the back of my mind as I filter through 8 million scenarios leading to the Derby that will ultimately lead to me having no winning tickets.
We've been there. We've all been there.
I laugh every year because I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to ask everybody the Monday of Derby week to tell me about their best Derby scores. And I love reading it on Twitter. I got like 200 replies last year, and I told all of them, I'm letting you know ahead of time, I'm the worst Derby handicapper of all time. I think I've cashed on it like twice in my entire life. I find it completely impossible.
Well, it's a lot of it's always a fun one to try to pick the winner of, because it's when you're in the game, it's worth more than money to be able to have that winner. It's one of the ones that's fun. And in a way, last year with Mandaloun it's sort of the perfect for a horse player, because you get to both feel smart. You had the winner while still wearing the hair shirt and self-flagellating because you didn't get paid. So it really is a great horse player scenario. Historically, the 2021 Kentucky Derby. Let's talk. Actually, before we move to Turfway, we teased Oaks chatter a little bit with we teased it a bit when talking Secret Oath, but I'll just ask it straight up. How good was Kathleen O?
She's good. She's really good on the clock. It was outstanding. It was a faster race than the Fantasy actually was faster than the Arkansas Derby on the clock. So was the Gulfstream Oaks, and I would not have thought that Kathleen O would stretch out as effectively as she has, but being a Shug McGahee trainee, they're conditioned so well to settle and make one run. I will admit I'm becoming a Kathleen O fan, and I'm usually the contrarian that's like, oh, Shug McGahee horses, they all get overbet and they're all pokey. I like her. I think she's good, and I mean, I think it's kind of nice too to see Javier Castellano riding a good horse again. I know he's really been trying, but she, look, if she can take the form that she's in right now up there, we don't see a lot of 98 figs in Oaks preps. So this was a damn good effort. It was considerably slower on Time Form US. And so I haven't really gotten into to how Craig graded out the pace. I'm guessing it was relatively slow. You knew it was going to be a fast buyer fig though, because I mean, they put 18 lengths on the rest of the field. And Goddess of Fire was a horse who really has come into her own since they stretched her out. She nearly won the Rachel Alexandra before getting collared late by Turner Loose, and Goddess of Fire is a half to mind control, I think, and looks like a horse who wants more ground than he did. So it's it was good to see. I think it's shaping up a really, really fun Oaks. We'll see what happens in the Ashland and the Gazelle, and because the New York bred Venti Valentine looks like a solid horse. We obviously don't know what we're going to get from Adair Manor, who looks like she's really, really good. And we have Echo Zulu in the clubhouse waiting for everybody. And I think everyone's sort of lining up to take on Echo Zulu anyway. So I think it's going to be terrific. I'm really looking forward to it.
It came back, the figure on Timeform US, a 110. It was not adjusted. So that is more like a 90 figure than the, what was it, a 98?
98, right.
But I mean, it is notable to me that she had to make her pace line's interesting, 85, 90, 100, 107, 110. So with as slow as she was early, I guess you can make the case that there was only so much she could do on the clock late.
Right.
And there could be something. As fast as she ran in the middle of the race, it seems like she probably could go a little bit faster earlier and maybe get it's all about running the ideal final time. And so there's a lot to it about just efficiency. And this was definitely inefficient. It really feels like she could have run faster earlier if she had to, the way that she uplined in the pace and where in the race she made the move. I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say, I think in ability terms, I'm not saying that commenting on the figure one way or another, because I didn't look at it at that level. Right. But in ability terms, I think the buyer maybe is a little bit more reflective of her talent than the Timeform number.
I think so too, especially showing that she's very progressive and moving forward in each race. I guess the big concern at Churchill would be that, if she runs an 85 pace figure for the first quarter, she might be 20 lengths out. Yeah. So that might not be the worst thing, though, if we're talking about Echo Zulu hooking up with a couple of speed types, and we've seen some horses show a good amount of early foot in that grouping, including the fantasy winner and Hidden Connection, of course, for our mutual friend Jake Ballas and everybody associated with it, who's going to be very excited to be back at Churchill. I'm sure it's really shaping up as a good Oaks. It's funny. I tell people all the time that like 25 years ago, the Oaks wasn't that big a deal. It was the Derby, and the Oaks was, I guess we'll go to the track too for the Oaks. Yeah. And now the Oaks has really become a destination race in the first half of the year. And we've seen some excellent performances over the years. And so I'm glad that it's taken on that type of meaning in the grand scheme of things.
Well, that's a good point. You make an interesting point about the pace figures and the possible pace in the Oaks. Just to go back to Secret Oath for one last point I didn't make before. I think it's a mistake to give her too much extra credit for getting left. I mean, I think that's more or less what happened at the start. I mean, she did get bothered a little bit, I guess, but I mean, it was mostly the issue was getting left. But getting left in a race that's coming apart like that can actually be a good thing.
Yes.
Granted, as I said, I didn't think she moved efficiently through the race. I'm not trying to knock her, but Kathleen O looks awesome. You made the note about the pedigree. I mean, the downside pedigree does suggest the distance. Upstart is the sire, if I'm remembering that right.
Yes.
So at this point, do you still have distance questions, or do you feel like they've been answered well enough by finishing up that well, going a mile and a 16th to get the extra 16th?
Yeah, the 2 turns, I think she answered that question. So, and I think that some trainers, the way they condition their horses, are going to bury stamina issues, and he is definitely one of them. So that's, if we were talking about a Wesley Ward horse, then I'd be worried, because she is not going to be trained to burn. She's trained to finish. And I think the big worry at this point would be if she potentially loses too much ground early. But I mean, I would say we're looking at her being favoritism right now is between, depending on what happens to Santa Anita, favoritism would seemingly be between Echo Zulu, Kathleen O, and Secret Oath. And then if there's another participant that's in there, then that'd be the 4th. But it looks like a contentious race. I mean, right now, going into the final weekend of preps last year, Malathot had not run yet, but once she did, we all knew, okay, Malathot's going to be a very solid favorite in the Oaks. And then we got a really good performance from search results, and we knew she'd be the second choice. I think this year it's much more of a grab bag. And honestly, I think we could see a 3-1 type of morning line favorite.
That'd be fascinating. I mean,
that'd be great.
With the star power signed on. There was that great poll over at In the Money Media on Twitter about who the favorite would be between those, or I think it was 4 choices. You had Kathleen O, you had Echo Zulu, and you had Secret Oath, and you had somebody else. How would you vote in that poll right now?
I voted for Kathleen O, but I also think that it's very likely that the public is going to see a bunch of 1s on Echo Zulu's past performances, having the background and the reputation that she does, and they're going to make her the favorite. But I I think this is going to be one of those scenarios. All the time we see these hypothetical matchups, and people say, oh, I wish this filly would run against these. And it's like, really, when you look at them on paper, you're going to realize they have no chance whatsoever. And so I feel like it's one of those where, depending on, and I keep saying depending on what happens with Adair Manor, because I thought her last race was really, really good. Depending on what happens with her, plus what we already saw from Kathleen O, plus what we know about from Secret Oath, I think Echo Zulu's PPs are not really going to hold up that well. And I think the other problem is that we're going to be dealing with a negative pace scenario for her. And I mean, I'm not overly critical of the race she ran at Fairgrounds. It was a starting point. I think Asmussen is the kind of guy that will race and train horses into shape, but it didn't exactly scream to me like, oh, tack another 16th on, I'm ready to rock.
No. I mean, we did have the knowledge from Frank McGoey that he dropped on the plus service that he was pretty sure she was going to be super short. And
he
whatever
said she was heavy, right?
Yes. See,
one comment on that, and it's not even about Echo Zulu. If you watched that harness race last night between Peter Aiello and Gabe Pruitt, I want the world to know I never want to hear the phrase that weight matters in racing again. I can say that. I can say that. Never again. Never. I thought to myself as I was watching the replay, I'm like, holy cow, he's going to go around this horse on the outside. Major props to both of them. I thought that was super fun, and they raised a lot of money for charity, but no more. No more do I want to hear that. So anyway, yeah, Echo Zulu is a horse who obviously needed some fitness.
So there should be some coming forward, but I feel like it was visually and figure wise enough that we might get into what I call everybody's a wise guy territory, where there's so many people that specifically think the value of the race is trying to beat her because of those things in the negative pace scenario, that you could get Kathleen O as a favorite legit. And I think, I mean, again, all depending on what happens, but that's how I see that question playing out. But that's just academic. We'll have a chance to actually see those numbers before we bet. Thank goodness. Few words before we get out of here on the Jeff Ruby Stakes. What did you think of this effort by the winner, and anything to take out of it as far as the Triple Crown goes? Tiz the Bomb getting the job done. I do not have a time form U.S. figure yet for this, but cruising home rather cozily in the end.
Sets him up beautifully for the international campaign. I'm sure that Kenny McPeak covets. Shockingly, he announced yesterday he will run in the Derby. And when the breaking news came out, I was going to reply on Twitter and say, in related news, tomorrow's Tuesday. There was a 0% chance that this horse wasn't going to go in the Derby. And, look, Kenny did the right thing as far as getting him there by taking the, backdoor route, so to speak. He's a good horse. He just looks like a turf horse. He doesn't, nothing. I don't want to hold a Gulfstream race against him. I think Gulfstream's main track is difficult for a lot of horses, but at the same time, I mean, he's going to excel on a synthetic surface because synthetic surfaces are easier and more forgiving for turf horses. And I thought he did what he was supposed to do. It was a good, solid effort, but I can't see him being a factor in the Derby. I mean, this whole notion of, oh, Churchill's very good for turf horses. I think that was made up by people that didn't bet Animal Kingdom or did bet Animal Kingdom and maybe wanted to really pile on. I don't really understand it. I don't get it. I know Dullahan ran third in the Derby, but didn't he get a huge pacer on that too? And I don't know. I don't get that argument.
Yeah, I've never seen data on it. I'll say that much. That's a good one though.
It's all anecdotal.
Yeah,
I'm going to hear it. Yeah,
it would be an easy study for Jake Jacobs if you're watching, and get your database out. Or we have other databases who pay attention too. If somebody wants to do the dive on that, just Churchill dirt.
Something John Tammaro can tell us in like 5 minutes. But
yes. Yeah, there's definitely some good options out there as far as that goes. Any of these others who you thought, if not for the Derby itself, but you thought might be interesting as wagering propositions down the line, wherever they turn up?
I mean, I think Tiz the Bomb could be very interesting in the Belmont or the New York Turf Triple type races. I mean, I think that, of course, there's a chance that Kenny McPeak will run him overseas, and we'll see how much that might derail some of those races. But I mean, he looks like a horse at 1.25 miles on turf right now. Looks as solid as any. And although I do,
it could be an interesting ascot runner in one of those 3-year-old races. Yeah,
isn't the horse the first of the scratched horses in the juvenile turf is a gelding, right? So I'm of the understanding that he is probably going to contest a number of races in America. I don't remember
Yes.
his name, the Godolphin horse, but I do know that if I trained a turf horse and I knew that Charlie Appleby was targeting a bunch of domestic races, I'd be terrified. Right?
It's not good
So,
news.
it's
not good news for the
So,
USA
right.
trainer.
So when I mean, like, there's already been an announcement that Yabir is going to run in the Man of War, and he's mainly going to have a U.S. based campaign. It was like, well, he'll probably win 3 grade ones, right? I mean, he's going to be, because he was so much the best in the race on World Cup night, and I think he's kind of a cool horse anyway. But anyway, so yeah, so I guess, I mean, it looks like domestically he's as good as Tiz the Bomb would be, as good as anybody. And I'm not discrediting him. I think he's a good horse. I just don't think he's a good horse for the Derby.
Right. Well, that makes
he's run his race over and over, and I think it'll just end up that the race that he probably was best suited to win on Derby Day is going to run about 3 hours before the Derby.
We'll see how it all plays out, but that certainly sounds like a very, very reasonable way of approaching him going forward. Before we let you go, I'm springing this on you, and I should have prepped you for it, but you did make reference before to the prep race from Dubai. Have you seen any figures on this race, or have you looked at the times on the day to come up with any sort of educated guess as to what kind of speed figure the Japanese horse
Crown Pride
ran?
No, it's a good question. I was actually going to ask Craig Milkowski if he had looked at it at all. He's been on vacation, so I doubt it. But it would be interesting to know. And I know in the past we've been able to kind of cobble together what would have been. Randy Moss actually has done it multiple times. I know he did it with Lonnie and a couple of other horses that came over. I mean, look, based on what we've seen between the Breeders' Cup and Dubai World Cup night, part of you is like, man, I bet these Japanese horses just about anywhere they show up. And it's amazing what a breeding program made up of almost entirely American mares can yield you in terms of dirt racing. So it's everybody that sort of maligns their success in races. I feel like you're supposed to say, no, you should celebrate it. Those are all our horses, you know? So credit to them. I mean, they've done a great job of it. So yeah, I would like to know, actually. I'll try, and if we talk again before the Derby in this capacity, I'll try and find something out about it, because it would be good to have as a measuring stick. And, I mean, other than a couple of horses that have kind of stamped themselves real contenders, this feels like a race where we could see an import and somebody that's off the wall running a big race, because we don't really have a standout. We'll see how much Epicenter holds up through the final weekend. He looks good, but other than that, it's a little bit of a grab bag.
Very interesting stuff, Nick. We will definitely have you involved again before the big day. We'll get your thoughts on that. We'll have you as part of our In the Money Plus coverage for Derby. We've got a special offer. You'll be hearing about it very soon this week, where you can basically get 1 month of the Plus service and get all of Keeneland, where we're going to have a bunch of extra stuff, and then also get our entire Derby package, which, is underpriced in this market. I can tell you that much. Folks are going to want to check that out. If you want to look right now, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus to check that out. We'll come up with some fun stuff for you to do there, but we'll also have some non-paywalled stuff as well. Appreciate your time today.
Anytime, my friend. Enjoyed it. Talk to you soon.
All right, good stuff. So we got in the Money Plus plug. We'll also plug, before we get out of here, the free newsletter. Well, we'll probably do another contest this week on the free newsletter side of things, but I want to announce that Chris Couples won last week. He had 2 of the 3 winners. He won our random drawing. He'll get $100. Well, I gave him the offer of a $100 free bet this weekend. He actually, as a loyal In the Money Plus person, said, renew my plus for a year. So we're going to do that for him as well. Maybe that's a little bit of an endorsement. They can get some folks in the game as far as that goes. But the newsletter, if you're signed up to the newsletter, you have an opportunity to participate in these contests. We'll do another one this week, picking winners of prep races, and it's free. inthemoneypodcast.com/email for that one. We're also going to have JK with a special extra show for Keeneland opening day that will only be available to the newsletter subscribers. inthemoneypodcast.com/email. And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. We'll thank producer Craig and producer AJ. We had them both on this week's show. Producer AJ is doing the considerably harder work. Frankly, I think Craig was on a conference call for the entire time we recorded the bit with Kim Weir. So, credit to AJ on that one. Our business manager around here is Drew Coatney. He's been working hard this week, really, tax season. And as far as our creative director goes, that's Jonathan Kitchen. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your photos.